Welcome back to After the Ashes, the Beautiful Altadena podcast, breaking down legislation and recovery after the fire. It's your co-host, Shauna, here, and this is episode 24.
Crazy, eh?
It is crazy. It's our final episode of the year. We are recording on December 16th, and we've still got a lot to talk about, don't we, Steve? You want to read our pithy title?
Oh, yes. Follow the money, philanthropy, power, and the first cracks in the fire recovery.
I just like follow the money. We should probably just say follow the money. That should be the theme of the entire year.
Well, anyway.
And definitely next year. Though I don't know. I'm going to make my 2026 predictions right now. Next year will be the year of the lawsuit and the investigation.
Well,
that's my prediction.
Or how the rebuild comes. It all depends on how the media wants to cover this.
I hear you, but I think...
and we have an election coming up.
We do.
We have some serious themes running through Altadena.
That's right.
And we aren't just going to be a prop when it comes to these gubernatorial campaigns anymore.
I think it's going to be a put up or shut up moment for a number of our electeds in particular, where either you're going to have to step up, do what the community needs to be done, or the community is going to end up suing you to ensure that those things are done. And I know of multiple lawsuits brewing on multiple fronts, which is why I was saying my prediction for 26 is that it will be the year of the lawsuit, because I would love to think that everyone will do the right thing, but I'm not going to hold my breath at this point because the trend is your friend.
Well, I have spent a lot of time having to sue governmental entities in my years.
Yep.
And sometimes that's the only way you get things done.
Exactly. And I hope it doesn't come to that, but it's kind of feeling that way.
Yep. So we're going to keep this one short.
Shorter.
I have a pressing engagement that I have to reach.
We're actually going to keep our 30-minute time limit if we can on this one. I think we will. I think we will, actually. So, our media roundup for today is going to be a little bit lighter, other than me pointing out.
No, come on, don't.
Than me pointing out that everybody should do a quick Google for a news segment last week on local NBC4 that was on a really sweet project that was happening, an ornaments project.
It was all my wife. It had nothing to do with
St. Mark's. It's Kate's good work. But for whatever reason, I think Kate could not be on camera.
Yeah, she had an appointment, so I went.
And so Steve took one for the team.
Yeah, I did the stand-in, which was not nearly as good as she could have.
But if you want to see Steve looking mildly awkward on the news because he does not particularly enjoy being on camera, please look up that lovely little segment.
Face for radio. That's all I got to say.
Oh, shut. He's full of it. He's full of it. It's a very sweet bit. So I think we're going to jump into the meat of today's topic. I think today we wanted to kind of revisit one of our favorite subjects, philanthropy.
Yeah, this has been an interesting one because, I'd say in the last week, as we've been starting to dial up over on the Substack, for those of you the three of you that read it, I think we're down to 3 because I keep losing subscribers. Yeah, and it's a free Substack, ironically enough. This question about reading between the lines is starting to become more evident. The idea of filling the gaps, like we have an official narrative. As I like to say to Shauna, we think about it from on the macro level. You have these long form articles like Justin did over time. And it's those little ones that are filling this narrative, that there are these gaps that exist between the little ones and the big one, and where that official narrative exists and what's kind of going on behind the scenes. And, for those who are readers and listeners, that's where my fascination lies. And that's what I've been trying to do, is to try to, illuminate those areas. And, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal last week that I read. It was about fiscal sponsors. Now, for those of you that don't know what fiscal sponsors are, they are basically, I can use an organization that is a 501c3 to help raise money or do something good for a cause, and that my organization or my event might do, but I don't need to be a full 501c3 because there's a process. It takes about 90 days. It's not that hard to get it, and especially if you're going to be standing up an organization for a longer period of time, you would do that. And, originally a fiscal sponsor can sort of be like that bridge to get you there. But this was an article that started going into the other side of fiscal sponsorship, where it allows for causes to escape the same scrutiny that 501c3s do. Because look, at the end of the day, a 501c3 it's a private nonprofit, but it benefits from the ability to receive money that's tax-free. And to do so, there's sort of an accountability component that goes with that. The trade-off is
You have a board.
I have a board that I'm responsible to, and that board is public, and my financials are disclosed. It takes a couple of years for them to be disclosed, but they get disclosed nevertheless. And the idea is that there has to be some transparency to this if I'm going to benefit from the tax status that I'm receiving. The fiscal sponsorship allows organizations to bypass that accountability and rely on someone else to do it.
And the idea is that, I just want to preface this because this is how, frankly, a number of our grassroots orgs here in Altadena have managed to survive this year, is through fiscal sponsorship. It takes some time to set up an actual, nonprofit org, an MPO. It takes time to then develop a board, to get your tax status set up, all of this.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. But it is a little bit of a hurdle. You can get through it. But the idea was to be quick and nimble, that to cut out that piece for a lot of these orgs, to just give them a fiscal sponsor who could run money for them, take donations on their behalf, and get them up and running quickly. But then, to your point, that does the assumption is that they will soon after become a formal MPO with all of the oversight and transparency that we just discussed. But what it seems is that that's largely not happening.
Well, it was interesting because, and I'm not saying this is every organization, but as we're looking at the wildfire studies and going into where the money has come from fire aid into those organizations and which organizations, where that money pushed out to, how many of those organizations receiving grants were doing so with a fiscal sponsor as their essentially the recipient of that grant money? In other words, are these organizations, who are they really tied to? And that's a piece of the transparency puzzle we don't have. And of course, nobody's asking this question, but we're going to have a report come the end of January where it's going to outline everything about the fire aid money, and it's going to essentially be a whitewash, as I'm sure we're all familiar with, because they're not going to go any further. They're just going to hit the top layer, and they're not going to go that step or two below, which starts to show a little bit more of the meat on the bone, which is where everyone wants to know where that money went, but who's directing that money? Who's coordinating it? And the fiscal sponsor is a really interesting dynamic because it can allow an entity to be a multiplier. So if, let's just say, money goes into organization X, like Annenberg, and Annenberg is the one distributing the funds, which is what happened with the fire aid money. But there's another organization that's the fiscal sponsor. They could be the indirect recipient of that money that went to Annenberg and push it out to organizations that they're affiliated with or that they can influence. Because again, as a very powerful entity in the fiscal sponsorship, this dynamic is you either go along with that fiscal sponsor and pay the price, or you don't get the money and you don't get to be at the table for these other things. There's a very powerful dynamic at play here that's very unspoken, but enough people have said to me over the last couple of weeks that this is a conversation that needs to be said. It needs to be heard. And, we've had media ask us what questions, especially on the philanthropic side, exist that we need to look at. This is, I think, a critical one. And to take it one step further, this question about the fiscal sponsorship, we were talking about the idea, these organizations that got stood up prior to, as a result of the fire. They come in, they get stood up, they're in the community, they're doing whatever they were doing. I still think there was an involvement with what's happened with some of the decisions that have been made at the macro level, that, let's just say, community alignment that allegedly existed. There were these organizations that were stood up and then they can go away, and it's almost like a fly-by-night operation. And we were talking about how, I said it a couple weeks ago, that the challenge of which organizations are still going to exist a year from now.
Yep.
And the other question now becomes, which of those organizations are 501 versus which of those organizations were
Have a
never.
fiscal sponsor.
And if the the year-long duration of their existence was get the money out, push it out to whatever cause or whatever they're doing, and again, we don't know exactly what that is, and then they're gone in a year. not only is it going to be hard to track back as to what they are or who they are, but the second question becomes, is it a feature, not a bug? Where we thought it was the bug, not the feature.
Right.
Am I making sense?
It does make sense. I don't think that anyone, to your point, is going to look beyond that top level to say, look, we did nothing wrong. Everything's kosher, nothing to see here. But in reality, we've created, a sub-universe for all of this money to be spent and without any kind of transparency and any ability to track it.
And again, the article in the journal was talking more about, sort of radical groups and how they're getting their money. But this is more commonplace. And I'm not implying there's illegality going on here, but I'm certainly implying that what we're being told or what we're expecting and the output that we're receiving are two different things. And again, when we go back to the article I wrote about scandals, scandals are more where the expectation doesn't align with the reality. And that's sort of what feels awkward here. So that's what we're talking about.
And it's a good point. I mean, we're also, as we now, as you mentioned, are seeing the kind of the first cracks. As we predicted, we said there are a lot of these orgs that wouldn't make it to the end of the year, wouldn't make it to the 1 year anniversary. And that's in fact what we're seeing. I know there was a big story on Altadena Girls, which is a fantastic org, but they had taken on a brick and mortar space. They had taken on a lot trying to extend their work beyond the scope of just immediate fire recovery. And they are now finding themselves significantly underfunded and, effectively insolvent. And we have a few other orgs who have sent out notes in the recent week saying, hey, we're wrapping up our work. Please, go follow these other folks as we knew, this is what's going to happen. We're going to see a lot of consolidation. And I think we're seeing that now with what's happening with Steadfast LA.
That's interesting.
Yes, it is.
So
you want to talk about that?
I don't really know what to make of it, to be honest. I think I'm not sure how they fit into this. We already have the ARC.
Right.
Is Steadfast in parallel? Is Steadfast an additional? I'm not sure exactly what they're.
I don't think anyone knows, and I think that again underscores this conversation of transparency with the community that you serve. And the fact that, the actual members of the community don't know what's going on. I always say that if I don't know what's going on, the community for sure doesn't know what's going on. So, it's an ongoing challenge to be addressed and a problem to solve because, ultimately, we need these organizations, we need these groups, we need all of these minds coming together to figure out how we rebuild this town, right?
Well,
but it's not just about getting community buy-in on paper, getting a handful of orgs to align with you so you can say that you have community support. It's about, why don't you actually engage the community?
Well, I think they try. I think it's so hard to do that without a plan. And, I think the mistrust is that what is the plan?
Yep.
And I think that's where the frustration lies is that, for organizations like Steadfast or any others that are here, or even the ARC, what is the plan? Don't leave it to us to fill the gaps because, quite honestly, all we are noticing is that we're not we're told certain things in public for a reason. And then when it gets to the private, there's always something else. What are we not being told? What is being done behind the scenes? I'm seeing your right hand, but what's going on in your left hand?
Exactly.
And I think that what is the fear? If everything's on the up and up, who cares? So
yep.
I guess it's just, once bit, twice shy. We've been bit multiple times over the past year and probably before. But I think that's where it's a distinction between, if you're, what is your goal? Where are you going? How are you going to do it? Help us help you, because we know that that's what it's about. But we can't get there if we have no idea or we feel like there's something else that we're not being told.
Yeah. And I think that is kind of how everyone feels at this point because they are in the dark about so much.
Indeed.
Yep.
And that's politics. I get that you don't want everybody to know what's going on. At the same time, though, you have to have something that people can rally around. If you don't have that by now, it's a very disconcerting question. So,
Well, and it's what makes it feel like this is like the recovery is such a grim conversation. It's not happening because, half of this this is the other part of it. If you do have a plan and you are working on things and things are happening, great. It is incumbent upon you to then communicate that to the community, because if the community hears and sees nothing, what are they supposed to think?
There's some, you don't tell somebody something because you don't want them to know something.
Exactly.
And that's the question.
Yeah, and therein lies the question. And speaking to this, that is the perfect segue to last night's thrill. So apparently, and I say apparently because it seems no one knew about this, LA County hosted a town hall that was intended to be an opportunity for first responders and fire and sheriff leadership. In fact, Fire Chief Maroney was in the room.
You would have loved that.
Oh, I know. Well, some of my neighbor who went sure did. Were, at Loma Alta Park for this town hall that was supposed to be to, create a bridge and to address community concerns and answer questions. There were literally 8 people in attendance there, a couple of whom were those involved in organizing. One was a media person. One is someone who didn't live in the area and wasn't there during the fire. There was one local media person. Oh. Yeah, and I don't know from what outlet.
I'm sure a lot of hard-hitting questions.
But there were in the end it was like
the Times because there was nothing.
No,
in the Times,
exactly.
So.
There were 2 people from the community who were there. 3. I'm sorry, really 4 if I think about it. But they were there for various reasons. 2 went together. One was there on their own, who was an older person that no one in attendance knew, and someone else is one of my neighbors who was involved in a number of local groups, and she was aware and wanted to be there. But in the end, it seems like a lot of the, one of my neighbors did speak at length with Chief Maroney, and she said the degree to which he was prepared with his usual talking points was chilling, that it was just a lot more gaslighting, blaming the Palisades, saying that, the Palisades, all of our equipment, all of our engines were in the Palisades. They did everything they could, that they had 3,000.
Wait.
And you can't make this shit up.
Wait. So all their equipment was in the Palisades. Was the Palisades' fault, but who caused the fire in the Palisades in the first place?
Yeah, they did.
Okay. Not the county.
Not the county. Well, maybe the county, but, it begs a lot of questions and
sure, maybe he's not responsible in that respect, but our governmental structures are the failure here, and he's part of that structure. So unfortunately, it's like it's circular.
I know it sounds like it was just unfortunately, like I said, a lot of more gaslighting.
So, but what about that article in the Times earlier in the week?
I know
about the fire mapping and the consistent failures that happened there.
Yep.
Because it turns out that there's a GPS program that the National Guard has that a lot of places use, but LA County, the 7th largest state in the country, if we were a state, I guess didn't feel that with a tremendous amount of terrain, a tremendous amount of wildfire risk, did not think that we needed a wildfire map. Oh, and because with Santa Ana's, you can't fly, so why would we not use satellites from space to help us know
track
where
these
fires are going,
especially when they're happening in our vast forests.
Fires.
Yep.
There are no answers to this other than yet again we failed. And again, this piece was in my roundup that I did last week on the day where I was like, all these things were hitting. Literally, that was they in that article listed all the articles the LA Times wrote since the beginning of the fires related to how we've had failures at the government level. Folks, it's all right there.
It is right there.
And the fact that they have the chutzpah.
You were about to say the balls. He censored himself, but yeah.
To stand there and blame the Palisades.
I know.
People died because they didn't push a fucking button.
Exactly. So I love this. I'm going to read some notes that came direct from my neighbor who did make it there last night. And she was so upset that this wasn't publicized and this wasn't what it should have been to actually have been any kind of meaningful accountability with the community. But she said that Maroney actually spent 20 minutes with her and that she
well, look, give
this
him
is my
credit.
favorite part.
He sat
he
there.
Showed up.
He showed up.
He did. But I love this. I told him not to say the word unprecedented again, and yet he did 5 more times in our 20 minutes. That is his party line, that it was unprecedented. She said that they reiterated that they had no data for outside reinforcement, so they can't speak to any of that. She said that Sprengel, the other fire chief, again wanted to say that they did their job and point to the job that they did evacuating the seniors, speaking specifically to the home on Allen. Never mind the fact that they did not evacuate any other seniors, including those who lived on Lincoln at that new development. I forget the name of it, but Julia, our neighbor Julia.
What about the
Esnard.
one right by the synagogue?
Yep, exactly. Have been very busy talking about this. She reiterated that what they needed was trained firefighters actually fighting the fire, not just our citizen firefighters doing this. And instead of just getting together in their command centers to talk about what they did before anyone actually tried to stop the fire, at which point, of course, it was too late. The OEM CEO was there and stated again that the LA Times reporting on all of the data that came directly from the county, that it was not factual.
The LA Times was not factual.
Correct. That their massive investigative report was not factual. And then you're going to love this part. I didn't share this with you, Steve. You're going to love this. I wish everyone could see Steve's face right now, especially when I'm about to drop. Maroney also repeatedly mentioned, for questions that he couldn't answer or didn't want to answer, that they should contact John Harabedian's office.
Assemblyman, I hope you're listening.
Yep. So the bottom line was no satisfaction.
Why should they contact the Assemblyman's office? Why not Sasha Perez's office?
Exactly.
Why not the governor's
exactly
office?
What we said. We said that exactly. And they said, directing our questions his way as if he can somehow answer them, because the fire department can't answer citizen questions and those should go to the assembly person. It was really
Well, what about
odd.
the champion of the people, Sasha Perez?
Exactly. Why would the state senator be the person to answer these questions?
Because,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a wow. So I think this is not the end of what we will be hearing on this. Needless to say, there are many of us, including the Altadena for Accountability Coalition, still very actively.
Did they dispute what the LA Times was reporting?
Yeah,
that was
they said that it was
improper?
unfactual. Do you remember
What
when that
parts?
Do you remember when that came out and Barger's statement kept referring to the erroneous and inaccurate LA Times story?
Yeah, but did they dispute direct points?
No.
So then how is it erroneous? And
Exactly.
if
They're
it's
just saying the data is incomplete, that it's not the full picture.
Okay, so what is missing, and why don't we fill that?
Correct. I would love you and I would love to. You and I and approximately 40,000 of our neighbors would love that answer.
Look, this isn't an indictment on the fire department. This is an indictment on accountability. Like, just if you're being back to our original point, there's nothing to hide, what do you hide? Why hide it?
Yep. That's right. It's there's so many questions and so few answers. So, this happened. That was it. I have no doubt that multiple someones are patting themselves on the back, checking a box, saying they did it. Aren't they great? I'm sure that at some point we'll hear Newsom talking about what a great thing they did. And that they had this
because the
hall.
state's got its own culpability with the
Correct.
Palisades, allegedly, according to Twitter. But again, you have to take it with a grain of salt.
No, they do. I've been talking to the folks in the Palisades, and they've uncovered some policy documents. There's actually an LA Times story about that in so many words.
But again, the LA Times is inaccurate. Factually inaccurate.
Yeah,
because
even
it
though
hasn't, because they have to publish stuff that takes multiple times to, multiple points of verification.
They had an entire team working on the verification and legal. That can't be published by their own legal team if it is not verified,
I can't believe I'm
vetted,
defending
and
the LA
accurate.
Times here.
Exactly. Exactly. It's embarrassing for the county. Honestly,
Well, just
it's
own
embarrassing.
it. Just own it. If you screwed up, take the hit.
Yep. It's like, you're just
It's
caught
not fair.
red-handed and saying that
But
you
it's
didn't
not
do it.
fair to the people who are the first responders who put their lives
That's
on the
right.
line. It's the people that were the
And who
sheriffs.
now have to take the brunt of it.
Yeah, and the
because they're
sheriffs
the
who
ones
stood
on the
out there
ground.
defending our town, the firefighters that are out there in the most in these dangerous environments. Like, what? Just
It's
due
shameful.
respect to the first responders
Correct.
that got,
It's
that put their lives on the lines for
it's
us.
disrespectful to the first responders.
And then
It's
us.
disrespectful to all of us. They are
Pay your
serving
checks.
no one but themselves and their own well-being, their own jobs, their own asses. And
Rule number one, thank you,
yep.
James Carville.
That's right. And it's really disturbing. So, as I said, there are many of us still seeking accountability, still pushing for a real investigation, still continuing pressure on our Attorney General's office, Rob Bonta,
You mean
to
our
compel.
future
Well, let's get to that.
potential governor?
To compel a meaningful investigation that is independent and has subpoena power, because that is the only way I think we are ever going to get any kind of answers, let alone justice, let alone, hey, the thing we all really want, change. Because if we don't actually fix this shit, what's going to happen next time? Oh, that's right, the same thing.
And that happened in 2018.
Exactly.
Because the unprecedented nature of the 2018 fire, which became 2025, which is going to be an unprecedented nature of the next fire. You can't keep using the words unprecedented when they're all precedented. It's
Correct.
there.
That is literally the definition of the term. So yeah, the frustration continues, the gaslighting continues, the lack of accountability continues, and I hate that is how we are ending our final episode of the year. But unfortunately,
But this is what
that is the reality.
Here to call the balls and strikes.
Yeah.
We're not opining. We're just saying this is what we're seeing, and you know what? It's time that we continue to bring accountability to the picture. And
where is it?
There are enough people at the year point that are sitting there saying, what can you do? How do you help Altadena? How do you help these communities that have been ravaged by fire so this doesn't happen again? That's the purpose of a free and open press, is to hold our leaders to account.
Exactly. Exactly. So, with that, as I said, this is our final episode before we head into a break for both the holiday period and, frankly, the 1-year anniversary, right?
Yep.
So I think we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening and what's planned for the 1-year anniversary. I know that's been a big topic of conversation in our group, is people wondering what's going on, and a lot of people, frankly, talking about plans to leave town, not be here. It's too painful, it's too difficult, and I understand that. But for some who will be here, there are many things going on. In fact,
there's the 5K.
Well, so there's the 5K run, which is, by the way,
10K.
did you realize that it's a 5 and a 10K, as I understand it. Did you realize that is sponsored by the Sheriff's Department? And the funds go to the Sheriff's Department?
Yeah, I'm okay to support the sheriffs.
I love supporting the sheriffs, but is that where here's where I get stuck. How can we have something for fire recovery that's supposed to benefit fire victims and fire survivors?
Well, if they
when
use
the money is
to
going
help
to
the
the Sheriff's
sheriffs
Department.
actually, help continue to protect our rebuild, I mean, I'm all for it.
I would be for it if they didn't have the largest bloated multi-billion-dollar budget that somehow and again, this is not about our individual deputies who put their asses on the line every day, and many of whom in the community I know, respect, and love. This is about the leadership, and they suck.
Well,
Their leadership sucks.
but this is top down, Shauna.
It is, but I think it is problematic for some. But that is happening on the 6th. Yep, that is on January 6th, the day prior to the fire anniversary, or technically the fire anniversary, since the fire did start at 6:18 p.m. on the 6th. On the day of the anniversary, January 7th, there are a few major events. There are a lot of events happening, but the major one is going to be the one organized by Barger's Arc. And that is happening. And of course, that's, the usual suspects. And that one is going to be at Grocery Outlet at 5 p.m. And it is supposed to be a message of hope. So, I don't know. I'll be hoping that they get their shit together in year 2. That's my hope.
Well, maybe they have a plan and they're going to share it with us.
I would love to hear that, and I can't wait. Following that, I sound like such an asshole. I don't mean to sound like such an asshole. It's just also
giving people the benefit of the doubt.
It is so frustrating. The event following that will be at 7 p.m. So that is from 5 to 7 p.m. as I understand it. At 7 p.m., another organization is leading a candlelight vigil from the Grocery Outlet parking lot up to the top of Lake Avenue, up where the Cobb Estate was or is. So that will be happening for those who are interested in being here and participating in that. We also have What else is going on?
You have the Department of Angels event and
On
January 4th.
Well, that's January 4th, and that's a curious one. The Department of Angels is doing something on January 4th, but
it's a joint event between Palisades and Pasadena.
But it's happening. It's happening in San Pedro.
In San Pedro.
Yeah, I don't know. Make sense. As we've discussed in a past episode, the Palisades is having their own big commemorative rally. At 10:30 a.m. on the 7th. That is the They Let Us Burn rally, and yours truly will actually be there with them speaking.
Shauna raising her fist in protest?
Hey, as many of their issues are our issues. People don't realize that either in their community or our community, that we are all saying the same thing, we are asking the same questions, and we're all feeling the same sense of frustration and being left behind without any accountability. So I think that's really important. And there's also, on January 1, there'll be apparently a CCF Rose Parade float commemorating the victims. And commemorating the fire and as a memorial to those lost to the fire. And I'm only aware of that because a couple of the families who lost family members reached out to me asking about it because they hadn't been contacted and they were upset. So again, I think...
we will pick that one up in the new year.
We'll pick that one up in the new year, but this is what I want to leave us on this note, is that there is so much being done that is so well-intended, that has the most beautiful, genuine sentiment behind it, but you have to engage your fire survivors when you're acting on their behalf. And this came up with, and I'm not going to spend too much time or give it much oxygen, but a coffee table book that dropped that happened to have an image of mine and my neighbor's home on the cover. And that image was shot without my consent via trespassing. It wasn't shot legally from the street. It was shot from standing in the middle of the pit of my home, standing in a spot I never once stood because it wasn't safe and because it was so disrespectful. I wouldn't even want my feet in there. Because my family's ashes were in there, my pets. It was like literally jumping into my grave, taking a photo, putting it on a book, and then selling it for $80 on Amazon. And that person, again, really well-intended, thought they were doing a good thing, but has actually, in reality, created a lot of harm, re-traumatizing and re-victimizing for those who did not consent. And
there's your word of the year next year, re-victimizing.
Yeah.
I mean, the governor started it in D.C., and you're going to hear it over and over.
So I think that, what the message that I would leave as we wrap the year is that, we all have to continue to do this good work. We all have to continue to fight. But when we say that we are doing this on the behalf of survivors, we have to, in fact, speak to and listen to and get consent from our survivors to ensure that we are, in fact, serving them in the best possible way that they need to be served.
Well said.
So with that, we're going to wrap this one up. We will be back very likely the week of January 13th. We thought about coming back the week of the 6th, but with the anniversary events, I think it may just be too heavy a week for all of us. So if you are looking for all of those anniversary events, I will have them all posted up in the notes section of my Substack. And I have been somewhat active there, and I'm trying to pick it back up. I've been more quiet than I would like to be on Substack, very simply because...
I make up for you.
He does make up for me, only because, frankly, we've been so busy online with the groups and even our social media. I encourage everyone to please follow Beautiful Altadena on Instagram. If you are in or outside of our community, our groups on Facebook are for our local residents only. But if you are that, please do join us there. But on Instagram in particular, follow our stories. I post dozens of events daily. So there and happenings and grants and opportunities and all sorts of good stuff. So by all means, until we see you again in the new year, be safe, stay sane, take care of yourself, have a beautiful holiday season, find the light anywhere you can, and we will...
And have hope. We're going to get through this.
And have hope. We are going to get through this. And Steve and I will see you in the new year.
All right. Take care, everybody.